you lost all your money.
Wow.
It was stupid. It was stupid. So, we said, nah, we're not going to do that. We're going to invest in equity positions, liquid Bitcoin,
Right.
exchanges, real businesses, real people.
Hey everybody, what's up? This is Crypto Cody, and I'm so excited to do another video for you guys. Guys, in today's video, we're going to be talking with a big businessman and entrepreneur, Jason Williams, who has founded multiple companies, had immense amounts of success, and has been quite the investor in the cryptocurrency world. If you guys could do me a huge favor, please like, subscribe, comment, hit that bell notification. That would mean the world to me. Let's hop into this awesome interview with Mr. Jason Williams. Excited to have Jason Williams on the call today. We're going to be talking a lot about some different things with entrepreneurship, as well as just investments and just what's going on in the world in general. So, but just a little bit about Jason. So he went to Methodist University training as a physician's assistant, then transferred to Yale University, where he then was inspired to start an amazing company called Fastmed, which then became one of the largest urgent care multi-facilities in the entire world, leaving a huge dent in the medical world. He's also a co-founder of Morgan Creek Digital Startups, as well as the CEO of PRTI. So Jason, thank you so much for coming on the call today. How's it going, man?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
So dude, I always like to start off with like a fun question with all the different people on the show. And if there was one person in the entire world that you could spend time with, whether it was past, present, future, who would that, spend time with for one day? Who would that one person be?
I'd probably like to hang out with Picasso.
Interesting.
Yeah, the guy is super interesting, obviously super talented, but he had all of these really interesting relationships. So I think it would be wild. He obviously ran around with a bunch of women. He was super connected. I love Cubism in regards to art, and it's either him or Salvador Dali. But
interesting. I don't think I know who Salvador Dali is. Who's that?
Again, bizarre human being. If you get a chance to look him up, great artist. Did the whole melting clocks thing.
Oh yeah, okay, yes, I do know
Don
that.
Quixote.
Yes. Yep.
But a lot of very intense images of people melting or trying to escape hell.
Yes.
Really awesome. I love art, and so I would spend the day with those characters and enjoy that very much.
That's so cool. What an awesome answer, dude. That's really exciting. Well, cool. So I want to just I know, this is more of a cryptocurrency channel or a blockchain channel. We talk a lot about that, but I want to spend a little bit of time just kind of learning more about you so our viewers can learn about what you've done and just give you some more credibility. So you obviously started an amazing company in the medical field. Can you just kind of touch on that and what inspired you to get started in that world?
Yeah. So I always wanted to go to medical school. And athlete, played sports in college, football and soccer. And they started a PA program. Physician assistance program was born out of the Vietnam era naval corpsmen who came back from the war, and they couldn't transition into private practice or find a place to use their skills. These kind of battle hardened, next level EMTs. I'm probably not doing them justice, but they had all of this surgical training. They could do kind of field medicine, but they couldn't practice medicine in the United States. So Duke University in 1974 started a physician assistant program and graduated its first class from there.
Yeah.
A really great program to contribute to the medical team. So you've got physicians, you had nurses, then nurses became nurse practitioners, and then you had physician assistants, which became dependent practitioners to fill a void in this healthcare team. I was inspired by them starting that program at Methodist. I applied to medical school, applied to PA school, was accepted into PA school, ended up graduating. I think I was 23 years old when I finished that program. I got accepted to Yale after that to do a surgical residency as a physician assistant. And while I was at Yale, started to think deeply about inappropriate utilization of healthcare. Okay. And it was literally, you'd show up to an emergency room and 80% of the people were walking wounded, non-life-threatening illnesses.
Yeah.
They were paying 10x the money to be seen in an emergency department. And the emergency department wasn't built to treat these patients per se. They had all the capabilities, but they're really there waiting for real trauma or life-saving events. And so I thought I could do it differently, put a retail spin on it, started to socialize that with my professors, ended up dropping out of Yale, moving back to North Carolina. And I bought a post office in a town called Hope Mills, North Carolina, converted that into my first urgent care. And then we built 127 of them over the next kind of 12 years.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing, man. And, you know, like I said before, like you really have put quite a dent in our society, especially in the medical world. And I really do thank you for that, man. That's absolutely huge for everybody. And I think everyone really appreciates that. So obviously, speaking of the medical world, I think that's all we're hearing on the news today, you know, like with this whole COVID-19 thing. Being professional in the business world and the medical field, what are some of your personal thoughts on everything that's going on, and how do you think that we as normal citizens should be reacting to this whole thing?
Yeah, so I'll caveat your statement. I practiced medicine for 15 years. So emergency medicine, urgent care medicine, family practice, did a little bit of orthopedic surgery. So, you know, I don't practice any longer, but I practiced for a long time, and I'm still deeply connected in healthcare. I still am on staff at Duke University Medical Center, and I work in the innovations and global healthcare department. So every day I think about medicine. These are super scary times. I think we, in speaking of the US, we underestimated the severity of COVID-19. I think a lot of our leadership were approaching it like it's just the flu. It's not just the flu. So I would kind of start to compartmentalize my feelings about it with that. Something really interesting happened with this particular event, overlaying it with this economic recession that we're kind of going into. Early off, I started to kind of follow the money, and I was looking specifically at overutilization or the pressure that was going to go on in the emergency department associated with this kind of ramp up of need as people started to get sick with COVID. The emergency rooms kind of set up for that. But when we did this kind of shelter in place thing, it really put a weird spin on healthcare economics, because the emergency department or a hospital system works like this. It's set up to take care of life-threatening situations, but those life-threatening situations, the emergency department or hospital system doesn't really get reimbursed well for, because they have to throw the kitchen sink at these patients. ICU admissions, really intense care, one-on-one kind of patient commitment. And the emergency department or the hospital system makes their bread and butter, or really gets the margin in terms of their revenue on the non-life-threatening stuff. So if you show up in the emergency department needing a medication refill, or you have a sinus infection, or you're having an asthma attack, or you have a bad headache, or you're having an allergic reaction, they treat that super quick, and they make money and margin on that. But that all went away per se when COVID-19 happened, and we kind of sheltered in place, or started to say, look, stay home. We're not going to do any elective procedures. So the surgical centers and even the hospital ORs, they kind of shut down or slowed down. Elective procedures stopped. So we stopped doing colonoscopies or any endoscopies, all the peripheral stuff. The labs slowed down. So they're just focused on testing for COVID, or testing the patients that come into the emergency department and need those type things. Imaging slowed down. So you're starting to see revenue collapse at the hospital system.
Right.
The hospital is just focusing on COVID patients. Accidents, shootings, stabbings, all that stuff is slowed down. So if you start to follow the money, here's what's happening. The hospital system is overburdened with super sick patients. They're set up to do that, but it does put a huge burden on them. Their revenue is collapsing because they're not doing the peripheral stuff. If you step away from the hospital system, primary care offices are closing, right? They're not prepared to see COVID patients, and patients aren't going to get their routine care anymore.
Right, right.
Dentists are closing, eye doctors are closing, dermatologists are closing, plastic surgeons are closing, the ambulatory surgical centers are closing, the peripheral imaging centers are closing. So all you really have right now is a fully functioning hospital, emergency department. The rest of the peripheral stuff is closing down. Then you have the next ring of offices or medical establishment. They're closing because there's no patient volume. Plus, they're not prepared to see people who are potentially sick with COVID-19. Now start to think about all the people that supply medicine, right? You have your medical supply companies like Calgore, McKesson, et cetera. Well, they're not shipping or supplying the regular durable medical equipment and used goods that these centers need. So they're starting to have an economic impact. They've got a sales force. They're laying those guys off. And if you do this kind of trace route analysis or follow the money in many thematic like investment buckets, you really start to think, man, this is a deep, deep recession we're going into with huge economic impacts. And it's affecting healthcare in a super weird way that I've never seen in my 20 years of participation.
It was interesting. So my wife actually got sick just with the regular flu, probably about I don't know, it's probably about 3 weeks ago or so. Totally recovered, totally fine. But when we called up the hospital, I mean, there was a nurse that basically said, you just need to stay home, and basically just stay home until she can't breathe, essentially is what she said. And when she can't breathe, that's when you need to call us. And I'm like, you mean, so you're telling me that I'm supposed to like not tackle this right now? We're just going to wait until she's into a position where she literally is incapable of breathing and then call you for advice, not rush her to the hospital. Like, so yeah, I mean, it's a little disturbing because I don't know. I just don't know who to believe or what to think, because it doesn't seem like anyone has a whole lot of information about that. So do you think this whole quarantine process is healthier for us, or do you think it's not?
Yeah. You know, if you, if you look at the way China approached this, or South Korea, they were able to flatten the curve of this pretty dramatically and pretty quickly by super aggressive quarantines. And I think it shocked and scared a lot of folks. I mean, I think the fellow's name's Kyle Bass on Twitter. You know, he was posting things like, you know, China's out of control. They're welding people in their apartments. Something weird is going on. And what I believe they did was they forcibly extracted or voluntarily extracted people who either tested positive or showed symptoms of COVID-19 and moved them to like a sick ward or quarantine them. They didn't let them quarantine in place the way we are doing it.
Right.
And I'm not sure we're approaching it correctly. 2 weeks ago, I said there should have been a national shelter in place order given by the government, pushed down to the states. They didn't do it. I think there are like 11 states right now that are still YOLOing regarding COVID-19.
Yeah.
They were arresting some people at the beach, I think on the West Coast, that were like paddle boarding because they're saying that the ocean spray can transmit COVID.
Oh my word.
But then they just opened the beaches in like Georgia.
Yeah.
So to your point, I feel like we're winging it. I feel like the medical establishment, like the leaders, are saying things to the decision makers, the other decision makers, and I'm not sure they're listening because they're thinking about the economic impact of their decisions, the threat of projecting weakness associated with the decisions. What happens post the shelter in place and pandemic? What does society look like?
Yeah.
Versus like Dr. Fauci, he's like, bro, 200,000 people are going to die potentially from COVID-19. And the president just kind of scratches his head and says, I'm not so sure about that. Maybe we should take hydroxychloroquine. Zithromax is just an antibiotic. Take it. You know, it's really bizarre to watch because the president's not a physician.
Man.
You know, so I wish that we had more robust telemedicine or telehealth programs around the country, because I think that could have really helped. Imagine if you were sick or your wife was sick and I'm on a video with you just like we are right now.
Yeah.
And I'm able to look at her. You're able to take her temperature.
Sure.
I can assess by looking like,
right.
Imagine if you had Bluetooth enabled biometrics that you could actually like transmit things. Like in my office behind us, I've got stethoscopes and ophthalmoscopes that have cameras on them. I could listen to your wife's lungs over this, just like we're talking.
Yeah, digital vital checks and stuff like that.
We just don't have them.
Yeah.
But, you know, these physicians or medical folks that are assisting with decision-making at the government level have made some really smart suggestions. One of them being waiving or relaxing the HIPAA laws. So when Bill Clinton was president, they put in place HIPAA, which is like the Health Information Privacy Protection Act.
Yep.
And what that was to do was to just stop people from selling your healthcare data or moving it around without your permission, just to protect patients. But it really closed down the ability for physicians to communicate effectively with patients. Like you couldn't use Zoom or FaceTime or Google Hangouts to talk to a patient. It's a HIPAA violation.
Okay.
But recently they waived that to allow physicians to speak to patients more freely. So I can text you, email you, or have a Zoom conference like we are right now.
Yeah.
And hopefully keep you away from the sick people if you're not sick. If you need prescription refill or something like that, we should be able to do that just like this.
Right. And that makes perfect sense. I mean, it seems like that would be the best way to socially go about it, and probably because I'm assuming that the reason why and correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason why we're gradually moving into this more quarantined, more restricted on businesses, et cetera, is really due to just trying to slowly not cause riots, so to speak, And like,
yeah, it's so true. It goes against kind of who we are as Americans. Like we want these freedoms. We expect these freedoms. And it just me saying like, don't go outside unless you have to.
It intrinsics that freedom. Right. Yeah.
Or like now, again, like I think everyone that goes outside should wear a mask.
Yeah.
Whether you're sick or not.
Yep.
That's what's going to get us to go back outside. Like the only hope we have to go back to work is if everybody wears a mask.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
Otherwise we're going to be sitting here in our basements. Like,
yeah, exactly. And it's ironically, I don't know about you you're in North Carolina, correct?
Yeah. In Raleigh, North Carolina.
I'm up in Maine. So, ironically, I find it to be really interesting that, in the midst of all this, I've probably not seen people outside. I've seen people outside more than ever now. Like people are on the trails now out here in Maine. People are outside walking on the streets. I'm like, what is going on? We have a lot of people all of a sudden. So it seems like people want to escape their homes at this point.
Bro, in our neighborhood, like I went for a run. Thanks for delaying this, but I went for a run today. And I don't typically run in my neighborhood, but the gym's closed. So like I went for a run. Like it seems like every house I'm running by is doing like a restoration project or cleaning the garage. There's people pressure washing their house. It's
exactly.
It's like crazy stuff. I don't know. I'm not sure if we can get out of our homes and back to work unless they either aggressively shelter in place, like literally say for the next 30 days, we're locking down the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you're out not wearing a mask, you're going to get like tracked, reported, geo-fenced, and forcibly extracted from your house.
Oh yeah. I don't know about North Carolina, but Maine, we actually just recently, our governor just stated last night that anyone who's caught outside that doesn't have an essential job or isn't the designated, I don't know how they would track this stuff, but like isn't the designated grocery shopper, so to speak, or is caught going to somebody else's house when they really shouldn't be. I think it's like a $800 to $1,000 fine, up to potentially 6 months in jail, which I'm like, I don't know how you're going to track all that stuff, but it's crazy what's going on. Maybe we should do a reverse psychology where we say no one's allowed inside of their house for the next couple of weeks. Everyone has to stay inside their house,
Yeah, think about this. I got pitched an app recently that tracks coronavirus patients
Interesting.
and then potentially tracks who came in contact with them.
Yeah.
So you can, as someone who potentially would be going to a meeting or traveling someplace, could kind of connect the dots and say, Ben is highly probable or
Yeah.
highly likely to have come in contact with someone with coronavirus.
Wow.
I mean, it kind of makes me feel a little peculiar thinking about those things. I even heard like Google had something like that, and there's
Wow.
there's
Yeah.
all these little suggestions of these tracking modules now to see, who was at the beach during spring break
Yeah.
and where did they go.
Wow.
These folks who violated potentially this quarantine, and
Yeah.
where are they now, so that we could estimate a potential kind of ramp up, or what I call patient 31.
Wow.
That person who's sick is now out there, spreading this virus. Pretty
Yes.
scary stuff
That's crazy.
if we're actually building these type trackers.
Yeah, and I was actually talking to one of my investor groups last week. There's going to be a lot of new businesses that come out of this whole pandemic. I really think. I don't know what your thoughts are, but do you think that now is a good time for people to be thinking about how to, like, the new stuff that's going to be coming out and arising out of this whole thing?
Yeah, I was on like a drink and quarantine show on Friday night, so it was,
Interesting.
I enjoyed that. We were just people all over the world, just having drinks and talking. It was Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday night. But I had said to the group, coming out of this quarantine, the world is going to be completely different. And some of the people didn't agree with what I was saying. Like, we will walk around with masks on, because COVID-19 is just one of 200 different COVID viruses we know of right now.
Wow.
But if the wet markets stay opened in China, right? The wet markets. So you take chickens and put them on top of rats and put them on top of pigs, and insects and feces are dropping all over the place. And, all of this kind of primordial soup is kicking around, it's going to create new novel viruses that spread. So you're going to wear masks. You're not going to shake anyone's hand. You're definitely not going to walk up and kissing everyone on the cheek. I actually don't want to hug you. I don't want to touch you. There's going to be a fair amount of social distancing. I think going to the movies is kind of over. Like, there's so many industries that are not going to survive coming out of this. Like, hopefully we go back to restaurants and stuff. I don't want to be crammed on a subway. One of the people said to me, well, you're fortunate to have a car and not have to use public transportation. Hey, I agree, but the leadership is going to have to come up with a new plan. We can't get crammed on a subway with and be.
I never thought about that.
So I'm not so sure that after this quarantine, the world looks the same as it did before. I'm certain it doesn't. And I tweeted this morning. You better start thinking about how you are going to deal with the world coming out of this quarantine, and how, if you're an entrepreneur, can you capitalize on that? Because I'm depending on the smartest people on the planet, the most ambitious people on the planet, fixing this, because it's not going to be the government. I'm depending on you guys to come up with masks that are cool and protect us from disease that people will want to wear, and new businesses that bring food and deliver food. And I'm depending on someone to come up with robots that drive around and shoot light on things and sterilize. I'm depending on video conferencing that allows me to have effective communication with my team. I'm depending on people to accept being hired and fired and coached over video conferencing and not being offended by that. I'm depending on these things to happen.
It's really amazing to think about. Oh my word. You wonder if it's actually going to affect our social society in a worse way rather than a positive way, or I wonder if that's the challenge, is to figure out how to bring ourselves to back to a social environment the way it used to be, right?
Yeah, look, travel, I think if you go through the list of if you made a top 10 things that are important to you, a list of top 10 things that are important to you, travel,
Yeah.
healthcare,
Right.
your job, your family, your friends, your social life, you just go down a list. Everything is impacted. I mean,
Right.
imagine like Bill Gates right now. Bill Gates has announced he's going to open 7 factories, and 1 or 2 of them are going to come up with a vaccine, and he's going to start pumping out vaccine for COVID.
Wow.
Well, there's a whole group of non-vaxxers. There's a whole group of people who support vaccination. What if I come to the society and I say, here, you need to take these 20 shots? Like, are you going to do that? I don't know, but you're going to have to think about it. They may make it against the law to not take the vaccine. So you're going to have a bunch of people that are just like, I'm going to break the law and not take a vaccine. It's against my, you're infringing on my rights as a human to force me to take a vaccine.
That is so crazy to think about. Oh my word.
Coming out of this.
There's so much that we could talk about this whole thing, I'm sure. It's just crazy. But I'm going to move on to another question before we get lost in like hours of this kind of a conversation.
No worries.
So, which I'm really enjoying, by the way. This is super awesome. So there's obviously an amazing grant that has been defined negatively or positively in the word amazing, I don't know, but like a grant that was initiated for people kind of more in the lower or middle class of people for $1,200 per person. And I think it was $500 per child in the family. Now, just from your professional opinion, I believe you're an angel investor. Is that true? Or you've been one, or are you?
Yeah, well, no. So prior to forming Morgan Creek Digital, Anthony Pompliano and I started Full Tilt Capital, which was an early stage venture fund or angel fund. So we invested about $18 million in 63 companies. Then we started Morgan Creek Digital. We have about 130 million assets under management and, I don't know, 40 companies invested.
That's amazing. So, I mean, from your professional opinion as an investor, what are your thoughts on just, what would you give us for advice on what to do with that $1,200 or more that families might be receiving in this time?
Yeah, the $1,200, as far, and I've seen this before because I'm older than you. So I think George Bush II did a economic stimulus kind of push. So that $1,200 is there to be spent, definitely. And that's their intention. They want people to spend that money. That money is to try to help bridge some of the unemployment gap, some of the kind of stay at home for those that are not furloughed but unemployed. It's just trying to help them until they get back on their feet. So I totally support it. The money's there to be spent for needs. Some people will spend them on wants, but again, it's their money once they get it. If you're eligible for it, you should take it. I'm a little concerned about the money printer and how the money actually gets there. The 2 trillion, maybe $6 trillion. They didn't even print it. They literally went to the ledger and just added zeros.
Seriously, how do you print? Like, it's going to take months to print that. Years.
No, they're not going to print it. They're not going to print it.
It's just digital.
They're not going to print it. Digital. Yes. Yeah. I don't think they're going to print it. I think they'll just add zeros to a ledger. Yeah. It's all digital.
So that's really true inflation on our assets then, or on our dollar. That's crazy.
I mean, it really is electronic money. It's electronic money. If you go to the bank right now and said, I want to withdraw, I'm concerned about all this. I want to withdraw $50,000. Let's say you had $50,000 in your bank account. Right. The bank's probably going to tell you, no, you cannot have your $50,000. And they're going to ask you, why do you want that $50,000? They're going to say to you, we have your $50,000. Look at this computer screen. It's there. The $50,000 is there, but you can't have it. We'll give you some because the bank rehypothecates your money, right? They lend it out 12 times. That's how they make their money. If you try to run the bank, make a run on the bank will close.
Oh my word. Yeah.
Right. So it's really wild. So it's just an electronic ledger. And that electronic ledger is they just add some zeros and, wire some money to people. And it's pretty
Wow.
crazy.
Now, with that being said, I mean, there's been a lot of news and talk about a digital asset that the government might be creating. Does that tie into this at all, or like, what are your thoughts on that?
I love that you brought that up because I did pick up on Mnuchin say they will pursue any digital options that are out
Interesting.
there. And I'm using the word electronic
Yeah,
because that's the legacy system. The
sure.
legacy system is an electronic money system with a central ledger. When
Yeah,
someone says digital money, I start to think about blockchain, Bitcoin,
exactly.
um, computers talking to computers, not needing a bank,
Right, right.
right? It's digitized money. So that was a really cool moment. I hope that the Fed is serious about coming up with another solution to take care of the unbanked in the United States because it's a large
Yeah.
population.
It makes me wonder if they would ever like kind of migrate to a concept like Tether or USDT or something along those lines. Like,
Yeah, I doubt they would. Again, this is just me riffing.
sure, yeah, yeah.
I doubt the U.S. government would come up with USDT. I think the U.S. government would digitize money,
Interesting. That's
U.S.
so
dollars.
interesting. Now, with that being said, kind of transitioning into the cryptocurrency conversation, what are your thoughts on investing in specific crypto assets and currencies right now?
Yeah, so I mean, if you follow me at all or follow the things that I speak about on Twitter, I focus most of my investments in crypto and Bitcoin.
Yep. Okay.
So and then I invest in companies that are kind of infrastructure based around exchanges, wallets, mining,
Sure.
and then the layer two options. So I'm
Yeah.
really interested in kind of the transaction moment around Bitcoin, or how can you speed up transactions and make things more seamless or efficient. So
Definitely.
I love it. Everything I'm doing right now is focused on blockchain investments.
That's amazing. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe your investment company, you guys did back in 2019, and you invested quite a bit into the crypto markets with your company as a whole, right?
Yeah. So Morgan Creek Digital, again, there's two other founders, Pomp and Mark Yusko.
Yep.
Mark is an exceptional person, and an amazing investor with his own story. You should definitely follow up with him at some point.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
So we came together and formed Morgan Creek Digital, and our first fund, the Morgan Creek Blockchain Opportunity Fund, we set out to raise $25 million and invest that in those kind of three verticals that I talked about.
Yep.
Mining, infrastructure, exchanges, and some fund-to-fund stuff, and then a liquid bucket that specifically focused on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
We ended up raising $40 million and investing it, and that
Wow.
fund was the first fund to have public pensions involved. So I'm pretty proud of that. And that's
That's
all
amazing.
public information. So the Police Public Pension Fund in Virginia and the Public Pension Fund both invested. And then we had
Wow.
some other institutions, hospital system, insurance, large insurance company, and endowment. So it was a pretty cool moment for us as investors. That money is almost fully deployed at this point, and we started our second fund, which is Opportunity Fund 2, and we're hoping to raise $250 million for that fund. Again, all
Wow.
blockchain, all Bitcoin,
Wow.
all liquid crypto. So we've
That dude,
already deployed about $70 million
wow.
into the space right now.
Dude, you've made so many dents in this world in a positive way. It's super cool. I really admire that about you.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
so now where do you think cryptocurrency is going to be better for society? Maybe even now during this time of this whole pandemic and everything, or blockchain. You could talk blockchain as well, not just cryptocurrency.
It's a great question. In 2006, I think it was 2006, I was in Africa in a country called Burkina Faso. I
Yeah.
also was in Kenya, and I noticed the use of a electronic money system called M-Pesa. Are you
Yeah.
familiar with that?
I honestly, no, I'm not.
So really, again, something very, very cool. So obviously there's a ton of people that are unbanked, and they have an SMS texting function where
Yeah.
you can go to an M-Pesa and think of like M-Pesa as like a little kiosk. and
Okay. Yep.
you can make a deposit there, and they allow you to share that money, that electronic money, through
Yeah.
texting. So you can make payments with your phone or share that money with other people that may need it.
Interesting. Okay.
So how I was exposed to that was, I have a bunch of medical clinics in Kenya, and patients would show up, and it's a wonderful, wonderful community based system. If a patient showed up for healthcare and they couldn't afford it, and I'm talking about $4 to $6, their total charge for whatever healthcare they were receiving.
Right.
Other patients or their family could come up and share that M-Pesa with them, so that they could meet their financial needs. And it was simple exchange of this electronic money through SMS texting.
Right. Right.
So I got a firsthand kind of experience with how unbanked citizens, how unbanked people can navigate around the periphery of a central bank per se. And now you have this great invention of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in particular. And I kind of fell down the rabbit hole when I saw that. And my first experience with Bitcoin really came in like 2011.
Oh, wow. So that was way, way early on then.
Yeah, 2011, I had a sales guy while I was still the CEO of Fastmed come in and say to me, hey, I'm friends with Tyler Winklevoss, and they're super interested in this electronic money stuff,
Yeah.
magic internet money. You should take a look at it. And I, like many, kind of just
Pushed
said,
you over.
I don't have time for this magic internet money stuff. But then, I revisited it again in 2016, and that's when I caught this super conviction and went all in the space. So what I think about this space, I think it's going to change everything.
Yeah.
I think that every stock, bond, currency, and commodity will be digitized.
Sure.
And that digitization actually increases efficiency, communication, access, transparency, becomes trustless. Like everything important and good and that's changing will be affected by this moment as this thing scales up, as it rides on the back of the internet wave, and as more and more people adopt to using it.
Totally. Now, I mean, obviously, I don't know if you would agree with me on this, but Bitcoin has kind of become more of the measuring stick, or what people would call in the cryptocurrency world, the Satoshi value measuring stick of all these other different assets in the crypto world. But, so there's really no company backing it. It truly is just an asset, but almost like a commodity, so to speak. And I guess I'm wondering, like, do you think that Bitcoin will kind of remain the king of all the other ones, or do you think that something will arise out of it as far as being like the new, like a better digital gold? Because I know that there's been different forks that have taken place off of Bitcoin, like Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Gold, et cetera, just trying to modify it in its use case. But like, it seems like Bitcoin still is just the dominant asset in the entire market. So I mean, do you think it's going to remain that, or do you think something else will take it over at some point?
Yeah, I think first, Bitcoin has to succeed. If Bitcoin doesn't succeed, this whole thing fails.
Okay.
And then two, I think there'll be some like tremendous better innovations and applications on top of or around the periphery of Bitcoin that definitely accelerate adoption and create better UI, UX. All of that will be enhanced. But from my perspective, Bitcoin has to succeed, and I appreciate businesses that are built on top of Bitcoin more than I am interested in other programs right now.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And obviously there's been a whole lot of scams that have come out in the cryptocurrency world, more specifically in like 2017 into 18 and whatnot, but just like with the different ICOs or initial coin offerings or whatever. I mean, is like, what's some advice that you could give us on how to avoid those different things that are taking place?
Remember when I got into, really heavy investing, it was 2016. By 2017, I was deploying tens of millions of dollars into this space. We made an active decision to go against the trend, which was investing in ICOs.
Yeah. Okay.
We didn't invest in ICOs at all. We avoided that whole space for a number of reasons. Most specifically, I didn't understand the structure of the investment. When I make an investment in something, I want equity. I want some type of lien against profit. I want some type of convertible note. I want to own something. But what was happening with these ICOs was I was buying a Chuck E. Cheese token.
Yeah.
Right? A Chuck E. Cheese token or some type of a token that literally allowed me to go into the Chuck E. Cheese or the arcade and use that token. But that token could only be used in that arcade or that Chuck E. Cheese if I built the Chuck E. Cheese or the arcade.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? So I'm giving you money for a very specific token and access to a hypothetical business.
Yes.
That I may build.
Right.
But if I don't, you have no recourse. You can do nothing. Just, sorry, didn't build it. You lost all your money.
Wow.
It was stupid. It was stupid. So, we said, nah, we're not going to do that. We're going to invest in equity positions, liquid Bitcoin,
right.
Exchanges, real businesses, real people. And, I didn't get to ride the wave up and down there.
Sure.
We just kind of passed on that. So ICOs, ICOs from that perspective, I didn't understand. But then the regulatory issues around them were a whole nother,
oh my word. Yeah.
a whole nother kind of issue. So we avoided 1 and 2, which was good.
Well, it sounds like you were very wise in that choice. And,
look, wisdom is sometimes knowing what you don't know. Like I just didn't understand it. So just my lack of understanding of ICOs and the structure and the kind of regulatory environment, I just stayed away. I wasn't just going to throw money at something because it was like the hottest girl at the party, hey, and that's just what I think a lot of investors did. And then you had the kind of herd, if he's doing it, I'm going to do it.
Right.
And I just don't think we, the three of us, kind of subscribe to that type of investing philosophy.
Yeah.
Just invest in great companies,
Yeah. And it makes sense. I mean, it's like, yeah, no, that's really interesting to think about. It's funny too, because I know that Warren Buffett is very skeptical about the whole cryptocurrency world. And he was talking about, he doesn't like the idea of investing in new things when it's super, super new. So it's interesting to kind of think about it in that respect. But
look, if I was going to buy, if I was going to invest in Geico Insurance or a bank, I would listen to Warren Buffett. But if I'm going to invest in a layer 2 technology on top of Bitcoin, why would I listen to what Warren Buffett thinks?
Sure.
If you blow your appendix out, don't ask the plumber what to do.
That's why I would probably be more prone to ask you, because you probably know the answer to that.
I may, but I also will tell you I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have a comment on that.
Oh,
Warren
my
Buffett,
word.
It's just like dinosaurs become extinct.
Yeah, right. Oh my word. I actually don't believe they have, personally. Not to get way off into the rabbit trail, but I actually believe that they still exist in Africa.
Oh, wow.
Fun fact about my beliefs.
Yeah, I'd like to explore that sometime with you.
We'll have to do another time, another talk. But anyways.
I love it.
So now what about the stock market? I mean, we've seen it down worse than ever. I mean, do you think that it's a good time to invest in it, or do you think that that we've hit a bottom yet, or no?
Yeah. Again, I challenge you guys, and I may not have done a good job of explaining kind of my follow the money in healthcare, but I think if you do the same thing with like follow the money in anything you're interested in right now, I think there's more pain ahead, not less. And things may seem like a value trade right now. If you're in the stock market, I think there's more pain and downside to go. I think there were a huge amount of overvalued companies in the stock market. And I've heard Mark, my partner, Mark Yusko, speak about this many, many times, like all these zombie companies in the S&P 500, where they not only were not profitable, but in the next 2 years, potentially wouldn't even cover their debt service. So they couldn't continue to borrow their way out of their shitty situations.
Right,
So
right,
when that, when that ball drops, you got a pandemic that popped the bubble of this massive 11-year bull run.
right,
Um, the dominoes are starting to fall.
right.
And, I pulled all, I probably owned two stocks going into this recession, this situation.
Okay. Yeah.
7 months ago, I took our whole family trust out of the stock market.
Yeah. That's smart.
Well, it was just, again, I probably missed some upside, but I went to cash and other type investment vehicles. I'm super concerned about REITs right now and
Yeah.
real estate as well. I think if you look at real estates in terms of segments, we still own residential, mixed commercial residential,
Right.
single family homes,
Yeah.
and we own commercial.
Right.
Each one is having its own type pressures right now, starting with commercial. We've been approached by tenants saying we have no money, we can't pay our rent.
Oh yeah, dude. And
So
that's more my field, honestly, too, because it's just like, I mean, I mean, it's nice when you see all these different interest rates dropping like crazy, but at the same time, like that's because the banks know what's up. They know that there's,
hey, and I would even challenge what you're saying. Are
yeah,
the interest rates really, mortgage rates really dropping? Because if you wanted to refi right now, those rates are going up.
interesting. Yeah, no, that's a
They're
very good
going
point.
up because
Yeah,
it's competitive. The banks don't even have the bandwidth to do all the refis,
yeah,
let alone dealing with the SBA situation,
yeah,
that the government's put them, burden them with. So it's a really weird time, and I'm feeling pressure across a lot of our investments that were pretty plug and play. Healthcare investing
yeah,
always was really kind of insulated from these economic downturns, but now even those healthcare businesses they can't pay their rent. They have no revenue.
yeah. My word,
No
that's
revenue.
crazy.
Yeah.
Now with that, like, how's PRTI doing as far as
Same
and
thing.
and can you talk a little bit about that too, just so my viewers understand what that is?
Yeah. So when I sold Fastmed in 2015, I was blocked out of healthcare for 10 years. So I couldn't practice anymore and I couldn't work in any non-appointment based healthcare.
Interesting. Okay.
So some of the things that I was interested in were renewable energy, um, robotics, and synthetic polymer science. So I owned a reference laboratory, organic chemistry. So we just have a gear like mass spectrophotometers and things of that sort. I've written patents around jumping robots. So anytime you see a robot jump on one foot, those are that's some of my work.
Wow,
Uh,
that's awesome.
and then synthetic polymer science. So um, specifically like rubber, like breaking down rubber is really interesting to me because it has a lot of
Yeah.
oil and
Yeah. Yeah.
chemicals in it. So one of the businesses was PRTI, and PRTI has patents that make these claims. It can take a whole car tire or light truck tire under 6 feet in diameter
Wow.
that's trashed. It would end up in a landfill, shredded or buried whole, or illegally dumped in, the woods or in the ocean. I mean, it's really dreadful when you look at this around the globe, what happens to tires. But the claims that PRTI made were they could take a whole car tire without pre-processing it, put it into their machine, and in 11 hours, break it down totally into steel, carbon, synthetic gas, and oil,
Wow.
recover all of that, and then sell it.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, so I raised like 25 million bucks in 2015, and I built the plant, which is about 20 miles away from my house here in Raleigh. And we've been
Wow.
operating continuously since the end of 2015. We process 1.5 million pounds of tires a month. We make 50,000 gallons of oil, thousands of metric tons of steel,
Wow.
and we get paid to take the tires on the front end as a waste stream. And on the
Yeah.
back end, we sell commodities, oil, steel, and power, and we mine cryptocurrency. So that plant that I built in Raleigh is the world's first waste to energy cryptocurrency mine.
Dude,
And
that's so cool.
yeah, we built a massive GPU mine, and a typical PRTI plant generates about 6.17 megawatts of power. So
Wow.
if you could think about, you know, that's a lot of hash. So.
Well, I was going to say too, because the hash rate has actually dropped tremendously over the past couple of weeks. I mean, has that affected you guys in a big way, or what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so when hash drops, difficulty drops. So when miners are capitulating, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's happening. You've got you had an exponentially high difficulty going into the halving. Then you had some price pressure and next gen hardware. So most of the miners that were non GPU based are using the ASICs. We're using S9s. So let's just say they were using 14 terahash per second miners. Those miners take 1,400 watts to the wall each. You put in 500 miners, you're using about 750,000 watts, and you're paying for that power. As difficulty increases, your mining reward decreases.
Yeah.
Right? And at some point, you become unprofitable or marginally profitable because you have fixed power cost.
Right.
Mining difficulty increases.
Exactly.
And you've got the hardware. Other than overclocking, you don't have very many options. So coming into the halving, what are we, like 35 days out?
I honestly don't know what the actual date is, but we're very close from what I understand.
So like, let's just call it 35 days out from the halving. And you've got tremendous miner capitulation that's going on right now. So they're having to switch off, turn off, or invest in new tech, which is like S17s. And those are exponentially more efficient in terms of hashing. So you have the miner capitulation, and hash rate actually dropped, difficulty dropped, but those that have good businesses, low power costs, next gen mining hardware, they're getting more of the share of the 1,800 Bitcoin that are being mined each day going into the halving. It doesn't affect us per se because we're GPU mining. So we're mining Ethereum or other coins. And then we're either holding the altcoin, selling to Bitcoin, or going to a stable coin. And part of our strategy has been stable coin in GUSD, hold it in BlockFi, and get the 8.6% APY. So we're getting some stability there, and then we're being opportunistic if we put it back in. Now, all of that was pre-COVID-19.
Wow. Okay.
Right?
So,
because I had to shut down.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And I mean, how long?
We got wrecked. We got totally wrecked. We were going through an exit. I had like 45 full-time employees. We had to fire everybody.
Oh my gosh.
We had to literally shut down the plant. It's been heartbreaking. You know, I sat here on Zoom and had to let go 37 people.
Oh,
you know, I was the first person I fired. And it was just devastating. In my 20 years of being a CEO, I've never had to fire people because of an economic downturn. I mean, at the height of Fastmed, I had 1,400 employees.
Dude.
And I was just stunned. My wife was like, you know, are you going to be okay? And I was just like, I don't know what's going on right now. But I can't even stay open because our revenue is going to zero. We have no offtake. The tire manufacturers are shut down. Nobody's going to the dump. Nobody's driving. Nobody needs steel. Nobody needs oil. And then oil went from $80 a barrel down to like, I mean, when I stopped PRTI, oil had hit $20 a barrel. $20 a barrel.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We're done.
Oh, dude.
Done.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, man. I mean, at the same time, though, I mean, I think it's amazing what you guys were doing. It seems like it's just so healthy for our society, you know, with everything that
we're going to come back, right? So I still have like 8 full-time employees. So I fired myself as CEO, put an interim CEO in place. I became the executive chairman. And then I have people that are the controller. They're literally took our business down to his expenses.
Yes. Yeah.
Took it down because we don't have debt.
Yeah.
but we have power costs and some kind of peripheral stuff. Took it down to the expenses. And now I'm just trying to tread water.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to survive the next 90 days and see what happens. We're applying for SBA loans. We're looking for economic relief from the government.
Yeah.
We were supposed to get that on Friday.
Yeah.
Our banks were not prepared, just like lots of people. We got told they don't have a plan. So we're hopeful Monday they have a plan.
What's
but we
this?
have
Banks
to
don't have a plan? That sounds interesting.
Yeah, look, I sent this note to our board. When you have to depend on federal grants and banks to be efficient, you better have another plan.
Yeah, because you're effed if you don't.
And believe me, I never use federal grants, low interest loans, nothing, never. Yeah. And now I'm forced to because they took my revenue to zero. The feds took my revenue to zero, and a pissing match between the Saudis and the Russians forced oil down to nothing.
Dude.
And now I'm waiting for my bank to come up with a plan to distribute $2 trillion to the U.S. small business owners.
Dude, not to get all conspiracy theory, but I mean, do you think do you think that this was all natural, or do you think this is some kind of a biological warfare going on under the table?
Some really, really smart people, like super smart people. And I've got some weird conspiracy theories too, but some really smart people that I trust and love sent me some information about like 5G is the cause of the coronavirus.
Yeah, you really think that that's possible? I mean, I guess.
No. I started to rethink whether these people could be my friends because they were dead serious. They were like, bro, 5G is corona. It's radiation. It's a weapon. 5G is a weapon.
That's crazy. And it came right out of Wuhan, didn't it?
Yeah, it came right out of Wuhan.
Exactly.
That's where they started 5G. I was just like, I said, man, come on now. Yeah, there's no way the cell towers around here are revving up radiation to the point to test a weapon, a biological weapon.
Yeah. But
there are lots of weird stuff that the governments do to people that I cannot discount every scenario. I think coronavirus came out of wet markets.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
And people eating bats.
Yeah, no kidding.
But people eat bats.
That's I know.
People eat bats all over the world.
Dude, I'll tell you what. I used to be a musician. I traveled the world touring and stuff, and I actually did a 3-week tour in China, all over China. And dude, I'll tell you what. The things that I saw that people were eating, I didn't partake in it, but dude, it's like what an American hot dog, which is already disgusting in and of itself.
Gross.
They're like their idea of an American hot dog is, they have stuff on these sticks that are like scorpions and
it's wild.
All kinds of stuff, and I'm like. Is as exotic as it might look to try it out and say, I tried a scorpion. It's just like, I don't know what that's going to do to my health. I mean,
and then imagine you feed that to animals too. So it's not just you eating it. You have to think more deeply than that. Human bovine spongiform encephalopathy came from feeding cattle, feeding them brains and stuff. So then that gets transmitted to humans as Creutzfeldt-Jakob syndrome. You can't eat the meat that was eating brains and garbage. So look, I don't know how you regulate that. Like, I don't know how you say wet markets are illegal or you can't eat bat. Because when you're hungry, starving, and there's only fruit bats around, I think you eat fruit bats. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Like you eat fruit. Well, I don't know if it's disgusting. I think you eat fruit bats. Because you're hungry and you want to feed your kids, or
I get it. I guess
people need other options, right? We need to be more thoughtful about food waste and what we're doing with other human beings.
Yeah, I'm not a genius when it comes to your health and what your intake is and how that helps you. I mean, I understand that I heard one interesting philosophy on a TED Talk once that he said that, we could change our entire food industry with bugs, I guess. I thought that
I just saw somebody making like butter out of bugs, like the fat out of bugs.
It sounds gross here, but in retrospect, I mean, if we did it here, it'd be normal. It might sound gross. In India, it's really gross to eat a cow, right?
So really gross. Or if you're just a vegetarian,
or in general, yes.
You don't want to deal with it. So Look, I think having healthy food standards probably is a way to start to slow this down, right? So
totally.
Right? So you have kosher products, you have the Food and Drug Administration sitting over how we handle and package foods. I'm not sure that those standards are applied all over the world, but I'm hopeful that may be the approach. If you're going to eat bat, make sure you prepare bat this way.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
not
that
saying
makes
eating
sense.
bat is bad. I'm
Yeah.
just saying maybe it needs to be handled a certain way or cooked a certain way.
Don't include the parasite with it, you know?
Yeah. Or don't feed bat to bat or whatever. Like don't force a a fruit bat to eat bat. I don't know, but it doesn't sound right.
No, it just sounds like we're going to have a bunch of Draculas in the world. It's just like what it comes down to. Oh, Jason. All right. I got a couple more questions for you because we're running out of time here. But I seriously could talk to you forever, I think.
I love it. No, I'm enjoying it. Enjoy it.
So fun question. I know that I was actually listening to a podcast that you were in about 6 or 7 months ago, and you were mentioning an awesome book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And, but I was curious, like, you know, since we're all kind of quarantined in our house, so to speak, what are some good books that you'd recommend to all of us to be listening to or reading, listening to, you know, that you recommend?
So right now I'm trying to pound through The Sovereign Individual.
Interesting. Okay.
So definitely check out The Sovereign Individual. I love all of Robert Kiyosaki's stuff. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad was good. Cash Flow Quadrants is awesome. Steve Schwartzman's book is excellent. I think it's called What It Takes. And then I love all of Malcolm Gladwell's stuff.
Yes.
So I think it's really interesting to read now when we're getting thrown so many statistics and so much information, trying to figure out like what's real, what's not.
Yeah.
So he's probably got 10 different books that are really interesting. You know, I would check those topics and titles out right now.
Awesome.
But and I loved $1 Billion Whale.
I've never heard of that one. That one sounds really good.
You got to check out this guy, Joe Low.
Huh.
He was like he's a savage, this Malaysian playboy who loved rappers, and he faked being a billionaire and literally liquidated a sovereign wealth fund. He was just draining the sovereign wealth fund with fake investments and living like a playboy lifestyle, like literally hanging out with Jay-Z and Beyonce. You got to read $1 Billion Whale.
$1 Billion Whale. I'm definitely going to check that out. There's not a lot of books with the word billion on it. It's usually like million or something like that.
Joe Low. I think that's his name. Joe Low. He was a savage.
Wow. That's
not a good way.
Yeah. I'd love to check it out though. I'm going to. You have my word on that. All right. And then in addition to that, when are we going to be able to read the book, your book?
You know, Pomp and I talk about that all the time, like writing a book. I'm going to wait until, and this is bold of me to say, that our funds absolutely crush, like, and deliver like exponentially.
Yeah,
and then, because so many people want us to fail. And so many people think that we're just like speculating or punting and Bitcoin's a fraud, a Ponzi. Right. I'm waiting for that to hit. Okay. I'm waiting for Bitcoin because I'm watching the stock to flow models and I love the work that Plan B is done. And I'm just waiting. I want to go through this halving. I want to see Bitcoin go to 60,000. I want to see the Bitcoin go to 60,000. I want to see some of these projects that I love and I've been watching work, Figure, BlockFi, stuff Jack Mahler's doing, like, Lightning stuff. I want to see all that work. And when it does, then I'm going to write a book and we will be, that will be a really great story because it'll be a story of, against all odds, against public opinion, real early, going forward. I love what the Winklevoss twins have done.
Totally.
Anyway.
Well, dude, I look forward to reading that book. And I guess I got one last question for you.
Yeah, hopefully it has billion in the title. It's
going to. Yeah. Maybe trillion. On inflating our money, it might have to be trillion at this point.
I'm telling you. I'm going to put that in my goal list there to have $1 billion in the title.
Oh, my goodness. All right. So last question for you. And this is a big one. All right. And you need to take some time to think about it. But what is the best advice that you can give us in general, period?
Right now,
just in general, best
yeah,
advice
life
advice. You're on your deathbed and we're talking to you, which hopefully is not for another 80 years, but like we're sitting next to you and talking to you. What is the best life advice you could throw at us?
Man, I wrote something down recently that I thought was really interesting. I'm gonna hold on a second, because this is actually what I would say, and I want people to think about it. Okay. Practice a propensity to avoid action right now at all cost.
Practice propensity.
To avoid action at all cost right now.
Okay.
Don't do anything. You gotta kind of hedgehog right now to rip off Jim Collins, Good to Great, I think, or Built to Last. But you have to hedgehog. If you're a business owner, practice a propensity right now to do nothing.
Interesting.
Survive.
Yeah.
Think. Yeah. And survive. Right now is not a time to start doing bold stuff. Wow. You have to kind of survive.
And that's hard to do, especially for entrepreneurs, man. I mean, I think rest is one of the most difficult things, let alone just being patient to wait for, that's crazy. I really appreciate that. I actually needed to hear that for myself.
Yeah.
So,
because you want to do something.
Yeah.
Right now, don't do anything.
Especially
just listen.
Now. Yeah.
Don't do anything.
Wow.
You just don't know. You don't know enough to take action right now.
Absolutely genius. Well, Jason, I look forward to seeing more of your work and everything that you're doing. Thank you so much for being on this call, and hopefully we can have another follow-up call sometime later this year, possibly.
Yeah, I'd love that. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much, bro. I really appreciate it. So.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right. I'll see you.